Tony stood over the unconscious widows, ready to wake them, when his HUD flared with alerts. A new analysis report popped up, flooding his screen with data. Alert, foreign compound detected, sir. Hermes' voice was sharp, cutting through the silence. The widows' neural scans are showing anomalous activity. There's an unidentified serum in their bloodstream, distinct from the super soldier serum. Tony frowned. Details. A holographic display formed before him, showcasing a molecular breakdown of the compound. His enhanced vision zoomed in, watching how the foreign serum latched onto neurons, hijacking signals, rewriting, and turning free will into an illusion. It's a synthetic neurochemical suppressant, Hermes continued. A highly advanced mind control serum. The chemical bonds suppress independent decision-making while amplifying external commands. If they wake up now, they will not be in control of their bodies. Tony exhaled slowly. So, I just traded one problem for another. Great. He rubbed his helmet, pacing in a slow circle. This wasn't just conditioning, this was biological enslavement. If he woke them up now, they'd fight him, whether they wanted to or not. Natasha's voice crackled over the comm. Tony? What's wrong? Yeah, so, small problem. The widows aren't just brainwashed. They're chemically rewired to be puppets. If I wake them up, they won't see us as allies. They'll see us as targets. Silence, then, Natasha spoke, her voice low and controlled. How bad is it? Tony glanced back at the motionless widows. Bad. The serum doesn't just make them obedient, it removes their ability to disobey. They're stuck in their own bodies, unable to fight back. Even if they wanted to resist, they couldn't. A sharp inhale from Natasha. Can you fix it? Tony smirked. Fix it? Babe, I'm Tony Stark. He turned away from the widows and flexed his fingers, watching as the black and gold nanites along his armor shifted and swirled like liquid metal. Legion, he called out. A second voice, deep and smooth, filled his helmet. Unlike Hermes, which was precise and analytical, Legion sounded almost alive. Yes, sir. Tony grinned. You ready for some fun? A low hum vibrated through the suit. Always. Hermes, send Legion everything you have on the serum. Activate the bio-nanite mode. Processing, Hermes replied. Tony knelt beside one of the widows, placing his hand over her arm. Nanites slithered from his gauntlet, sinking into her skin like ink dispersing in water. Legion, I'm giving you free rein on this. Adapt. Override. Burn out whatever's in their system without causing any side effects. Understood. Tony's HUD lit up as data flowed between Legion and Hermes. The nanites worked fast, mapping the widow's neural pathways, isolating the foreign serum, and beginning the delicate process of neutralization. The holographic screen in front of Tony showed a live simulation of the widow's biology. The mind control serum was deeply embedded, its tendrils wrapped tightly around neurons, forcing chemical obedience. Legion's nanites latched onto it like microscopic surgeons, cutting away the invasive compound molecule by molecule. Natasha's voice came through, quieter this time. Tony, are you sure this will work? He hesitated, watching as the widow's vitals fluctuated. I never test things before I use them, he admitted. But if it doesn't, well, then I just committed mass murder by accident. Tony. I'm kidding. Mostly. Legion's voice cut in. Sir, I am progressing through the first subject. The serum is deeply integrated into the motor cortex and hippocampus. Full removal will take approximately 3 minutes per widow. Tony glanced at the 113 bodies before him. 3 minutes each? He did the math. That's 5 hours and some. But, you can adapt after the first, so approximate 15 to 16 minutes should be enough. Correct, Legion answered. Once I adapt to the first subject, I will optimize the process for the rest. Estimated time for full detoxification, 15 minutes. As I thought. A sharp beep from Hermes. The first subject's neural pathways are stabilizing. The serum is being overridden. Tony watched as the widow's breathing changed, her chest rising more naturally, her fingers twitching slightly, then, her eyes snapped open. Tony tensed, ready for a fight, but she didn't attack. Instead, she gasped, her body jerking as if waking from a nightmare. Her pupils dilated wildly before focusing on him. She looked around, confused, then down at her own shaking hands. Her voice was hoarse. I can move? Tony exhaled. Hell yeah, you can. The widow stared at him, disbelief washing over her. Then, tears formed in her eyes. Silent, unrestrained, but real. Legion, Tony said. Execute on the rest. As you command. The room was filled with a faint hum as thousands of nanites dispersed, flowing through the air like invisible mist. One by one, the widows began to wake, some gasped. Others clutched their heads, overwhelmed by the sensation of choice returning to them. A few immediately broke down into sobs, years of stolen autonomy crashing back all at once. Tony stood, watching it unfold, then his comms crackled. Tony, Natasha's voice was tight, emotional. Put me through to them. Tony pressed a button on his gauntlet, activating the speakers in his suit. Widows, you have a call. Natasha's voice filled the room. Sisters. Every widow froze, then, one by one, they turned toward Tony, toward the sound of the voice echoing through the room. Natasha took a shaky breath. You're free. Silence, then, a single whisper from one of the widows. Natasha? Tony crossed his arms, watching as the chaos of emotion spread through the room. Some fell to their knees, sobbing in relief. Others clutched their heads as years of programming fought against their newfound freedom. Welcome back to the world, ladies, Tony said softly. Then he turned to the two very unfortunate women still lying at his feet, the headmistress and Ludmilla, both watching in horror as their empire crumbled before their eyes. Well, the headmistress looked tougher than she looked. Despite passing out, she woke up again and was looking great for someone who lost their limbs. Tony smirked. Now, he said, rolling his shoulders. Time for your turn. The headmistress and Ludmilla, the two women, lay on the cold steel floor, their bodies broken but still conscious enough to understand what was happening. The headmistress groaned, clutching the burned stumps where her legs used to be. Ludmilla, still slumped against the wall, glared up at Tony with a mixture of hatred and something close to fear. The widows turned toward them, some of them clenched their fists, their faces unreadable. Others just stared, their expressions dark, their minds processing years of pain, abuse, and stolen choices. Tony sighed dramatically, placing his hands on his hips. All right, ladies. Let's have a little chat. The widows turned to him that he motioned to the two women. Now, I could kill them myself. Wouldn't take long. Hell, I could make it so they never die, just keep them suffering in some underground cell forever. But that doesn't feel right, does it? He took a slow step forward. No. That's your decision to make. The words hung in the air, the widows blinked. A few of them exchanged glances, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. The very concept of being allowed to choose was foreign. Tony crouched down next to Ludmilla, tilting his head. You hearing this, Kudrin? You should be honored. You spent years turning these women into tools, stripping them of their freedom. His voice dropped to a mocking whisper. And now? They get to decide what happens to you. Ludmilla's breathing was ragged, but she still held her glare. You think this will change anything? She spat, blood dripping from her mouth. The Red Room is bigger than one facility, bigger than me. You may have freed these puppets, but they are replaceable. There will always be more. Tony smirked. Keep telling yourself that while you piss yourself in fear. He stood up and turned back to the widows. So, he said, clapping his hands together. What's it gonna be? Silence. Then, one of the widows stepped forward. She was young, barely in her early 20s, with short black hair and dark, hazel eyes. She walked slowly, almost cautiously, until she stood before the two fallen women, her hands balled into fists. "I remember you," she said, her voice steady but cold. Ludmilla looked up, squinting. "You took me from my family when I was 8, the widow continued. "You made me kill my best friend when I was 12. A pause, then she turned to the others. "How many of you were forced to kill someone you loved?" A murmur rippled through the group. Dozens of hands went up, the widow's jaw tightened. She turned back to Ludmilla and the headmistress, her next words sent chills through the air. "Then we decide together." Tony crossed his arms, watching with interest. He wasn't going to interfere. One by one, more widows stepped forward, their expressions unreadable. One of them, a woman with a deep scar across her cheek, knelt beside the headmistress and yanked her by the hair, forcing her to look up. "Do you remember me?" she asked quietly. The headmistress gritted her teeth, pain evident in her face, but she said nothing. "You should," the widow continued. "You made me watch while you killed my sister. Said it would make me stronger." Another widow spoke. "You drugged us. Made us think we wanted to be your weapons." Another. "You laughed when we cried." More voices. More memories. Then, the black-haired widow, the first to speak, turned to Tony. "What do you think we should do?" she asked. Tony blinked. "Oh, no, no, no. Don't put this on me. You get to make this call." We. They somewhat hesitated. The word freedom was foreign to them. Tony noticed it and thought it would take some time for them to get used to this. That he exhaled, rubbing his jaw. "Killing them would be easy," he admitted. "A quick solution. But you have to ask yourselves, will it make you feel better? Will it fix what they did to you?" The room was silent, then Tony shrugged. "Or maybe you don't care about fixing it. Maybe you just want them to suffer. And that's fair, too." Ludmilla let out a sharp breath, laughing weakly. "You're no better than us," she rasped. Tony grinned. "Sweetheart, I never said I was a good person." Then he turned back to the widows. "Your choice, ladies. Just know, whatever you decide, no one's gonna stop you." Silence stretched, then, a gun clicked. Tony raised an eyebrow as one of the widows aimed a pistol at Ludmilla's forehead. Ludmilla closed her eyes, the widow's finger trembled over the trigger. Tony watched, curious. Then, the gun lowered, the widow exhaled sharply, shaking her head. "No," she muttered. "Death is too kind for them." The others murmured in agreement. Scarred widow smirked. "Then we make them suffer." The widows moved as one, dragging Ludmilla and the headmistress toward the far end of the facility. There was a lot of equipment down there. Medical labs. Surgical stations. Places where they had been experimented on. Now, they were about to return the favor. Tony didn't need to watch what happened next. Natasha's voice came through the comms. "Tony. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I'm far from done." The agonized screams of Ludmilla and the headmistress echoed through the cold, steel walls of the Red Room's underground facility. Their bodies convulsed violently as the experimental serum overloaded their systems, cells breaking down at a molecular level. Flesh bubbled, twisted, and liquefied into a grotesque sludge, the last remnants of their existence vanishing into the very hell they had built. Tony stood over their remains, unfazed. "Huh. Guess that formula wasn't quite perfected, after all," he muttered. He turned to face the freed widows, who were watching in silence. Some looked disgusted, others relieved. But there was no pity. Natasha's voice crackled through his comms. "Tony, we need to move. The longer we stay here, the higher the chances of someone catching on." Tony nodded. "Agreed. You got somewhere off the grid where you can hide them till I finish the job?" There was a pause. Then Natasha responded, "Yeah. I have a safe house in the mountains. No digital footprint, no records, nothing. It's secure. Perfect. Tony turned to the widows. Alright, ladies. Field trip time. With the base now fully under his control, Tony led the group to the hangar, where a fully operational carrier plane sat waiting. He ran a quick systems check: engines, fuel, flight path. Everything was good to go. As the widows boarded, Tony issued silent commands to his nanite drones. A pair of invisible sentries detached from his suit, slipping onto the plane unnoticed. Their directive was simple: monitor the widows, ensure their safety, and eliminate any external threats. Once all were inside, he tapped on his gauntlet. You're clear for takeoff. Hermes, override base controls, open the hangar doors. Affirmative, sir, the AI confirmed. The massive steel doors groaned open, revealing the vast stretch of the Siberian night sky. The engines roared to life, and moments later, the plane was airborne, disappearing into the darkness. Tony exhaled, watching as the craft faded from his HUD's tracking range. Hermes, maintain a secure link with the drones inside that plane. I want real-time updates. Understood, sir. Satisfied, Tony turned toward the remaining map of Red Room facilities displayed on his wrist interface. 1 down. 5 more to go. He flexed his fingers, nanites shifting over his suit. Alright, he muttered, cracking his neck. Next target. With a surge of repulsor energy, he took off into the sky, disappearing into the cold night, heading toward his next mission. The frigid winds of Siberia howled around him as Tony hovered above the next Red Room installation. His HUD mapped out the facility below, a sprawling underground bunker hidden beneath the ice, marked only by a handful of disguised entry points. His scans confirmed it: no widows. Just another hub for Red Room logistics, supply chains, and intelligence storage. Good. That makes things simple. Tony flexed his fingers, the nanites in his suit shifting seamlessly as he tapped into the facility's security network. Firewalls? Child's play. Encryption? Not even a challenge. Within seconds, the entire base was under his control. Cameras, turrets, automated defenses, they were all his to command. Hermes, initiate lockdown sequence, he murmured. Lockdown in progress, the AI confirmed. All exits are now sealed. Internal communication has been cut off. Below, Red Room operatives were beginning to panic. Doors refused to open. The ventilation system shut down. Emergency override codes failed. Their entire base had become a steel coffin. Tony smirked. Alright, boys. Let's light this candle. With a single command, he activated the base's self-destruct system. T-60 seconds, from the sky, Tony watched as the countdown played out in his HUD. The agents scrambled, banging on doors, trying to escape. But there was no way out. They were rats in a burning maze. 10. 9. 8. A Red Room officer screamed orders at his men, but it was useless. 3. 2. 1. Boom! A massive explosion ripped through the icy wasteland, sending shockwaves across the tundra. The ground trembled as fire and debris erupted into the air, swallowing the facility in a towering inferno. Tony hovered above, arms crossed, watching as the flames consumed everything. No more ghosts, he muttered, before turning toward his next target. New York, abandoned docks. The Red Room had always been careful. Their New York operation had been hidden for years, tucked away in the shadows of the abandoned dockyards. On paper, it was nothing but a forgotten warehouse, a relic of the past, but Tony knew better. He landed silently on the rooftop, his sensors already scanning the area. No widows detected. Just like Siberia, this was a logistical hub, a place for moving weapons, intel, and personnel under the radar. A dead end for human trafficking and black market deals, all disguised as an empty lot. Tony's fingers danced across his wrist console, hacking into the facility's systems. Within moments, he was inside their network, sifting through classified data, tracking every financial transaction, every encrypted message, names flashed across his screen. Bank accounts. High-ranking officials connected to the Red Room. He smirked. Gotcha. Hermes, copy all relevant intel and forward it to Elena, he ordered. Then initiate lockdown and self-destruct. Confirmed, sir. The same scene played out as before. Panic spread through the ranks of the unsuspecting agents below. Doors sealed shut. Communications failed. T-60 seconds, Tony watched the chaos unfold from the sky. Boom, the explosion tore through the dockyard, sending shockwaves across the harbor. Flames engulfed the abandoned buildings, reflecting off the water like hellfire. Tony didn't look back. Point 2 down. Meanwhile, deep within Tony's lab, Elena, his secondary AI, was already working ahead of him. Her target? 3 Red Room dummy sub-bases scattered across the globe. Moscow, a disguised embassy office in the heart of the city. Cairo, an underground intelligence hub hidden beneath a luxury hotel. Hong Kong, a high-tech research facility specializing in biochemical warfare. Elena's attack was silent. Deadly. Untraceable, she easily bypassed their security networks, infiltrating their servers. Within seconds, their systems turned against them. Moscow, the security doors locked, trapping the agents inside. The temperature dropped below freezing as Elena manipulated the temperature control systems, leaving them to freeze in their own tomb. Cairo, the ventilation system flooded with a colorless neurotoxin, the same kind they had used on innocent test subjects. The agents dropped, choking on their own crimes. Hong Kong, the automated defense turrets, once programmed to protect, now turned on their masters. Gunfire echoed through the facility as the AI-controlled weapons exterminated every last agent. Within 10 minutes, all 3 sub-bases were eliminated. The Red Room was collapsing. Tony stretched his arms. Elena, status report? All 3 sub-bases have been neutralized. Elena's voice responded smoothly. Surviving data has been extracted and archived. Good girl. Sir, Hermes interrupted. With these bases destroyed, the Red Room's operational network has suffered an 80% collapse. Only the main base remains. Tony exhaled, rolling his shoulders. Time to finish this. Ural Mountains, the icy winds howled as Tony Stark soared toward the last standing stronghold of the Red Room. This was it. The heart of the organization. The place where the real decisions were made. The bastards who sat comfortably in their hidden fortress while others did their dirty work. His HUD flickered, displaying the underground network beneath the mountain range. The base was massive, easily the size of a small military compound. And it was heavily reinforced. Unlike the other bases, this one had layered defenses, designed to withstand full-scale assaults. Not that it would help. Hermes, give me a full breakdown, Tony muttered, adjusting the repulsors in his boots. Scanning now, Hermes replied. The facility has reinforced titanium walls, electromagnetic shielding, and anti-air defenses spread across the perimeter. Surface-level security consists of 24 automated turrets, 8 drone sentries, and 75 ground operatives on patrol. Internal forces include over 200 Red Room personnel and approximately 50 high-ranking officials. And the widows? Hermes paused for half a second. Unknown. My scans detect at least 30 active widow signals at the base. According to the data. Many are currently off-site, deployed on missions across the world. Exact number, unknown. There are no records. Tony clenched his jaw. That was the biggest problem. Even if he wiped out this base, the widows still out there were effectively ghosts. Agents hiding in plain sight, woven into the very fabric of society. Some were embedded within governments, others working as assassins for hire, unaware that their so-called loyalty was nothing but chemical programming. That's why he needed the leaders alive. They had the names. The locations. The fail-safe protocols, and if they refused to answer, well. There was Natasha and the other widows. They must have information on the other widows. Well, time to fuck them up. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and like for latest videos.